How's it going, guys? Welcome to Audio Addiction. We have Alex Exists with us tonight. He can say his name and what he does in the band.
Well, it's me, Alex Exists, and my music is a confluence of like pop, rock, hip hop, punk, grunge, all those fun things. I produce everything mainly myself. I do have a
Nice.
band that I play live with. I've been playing with for a lot of years, and they play on the records sometimes. And I collaborate with some other people, but mainly it's a introverted experience here at the home studio.
I feel that. I feel that. But thank you, Alex, for coming on. I want to give a shout out to Jason over at Engage. He always sends me some really interesting artists, and so much love to Jason, of course. Obviously, I had told Alex beforehand. I was just listening to his newest song, "Dancing with Chaos," which I thought was very interesting. We'll have to get into the music video itself a little bit later on because I thought the visual aspects of things along with the musicality was just a cool like contrast, and so we'll get into that a little bit more as the interview goes on. But beyond just listening to Dancing with Chaos, I don't know too much outside of your band in regards to how you started out and like your journey. So, Alex, how long have you been creating music for? Has this always been, I imagine, is obviously a passion of yours, certainly, but when did you know you wanted to do like music and make your own music and start your own project pretty much?
Well, I guess I'll start from the beginning. So yeah, I was just really enchanted by music at an early age. It definitely
Hmm.
started with my grandmother, who was a pianist. She was like a parlor piano player.
Oh, cool.
Just a toddler, like I would literally be hugging like the piano legs, just kind of like being a
Oh,
with the sound. Just like the sound drove me nuts, right? And then after a while, she wasn't really around anymore, and um, then it kind of the next. I didn't really pursue music
hmm.
when I was really young, but then when I started getting into gaming as like a preteen, the music in video games just blew me away. I
Oh, it's
would
great.
stay on a level and just sit and I didn't because I didn't want the song to end or the loop to end. Whether it was like the epic boss battles or just like whatever. And they're so great. And that was the second time I was like, what the music just really enchanted me. And then by the time I was like kind of in high school and finishing up high school, I had the quintessential high school band, which
Sure.
we did a lot of cool things. We broke up eventually because
Oh,
most of them do. You either like go on to be like super famous or you break up with your high school band. But we did some cool things. Like we opened for Jesus and Mary Chain
oh.
and like and Carol Pope, and like we really, yeah, it was a good time. There's a cool record. But after we broke up, that was my time to kind of start my own thing and kind of find my own voice, let's say.
Mhm.
And I started producing and making my own tunes, and that kind of, it transitioned from kind of a more of a band situation with the nursery, and then into Alex Exists, which is kind of my thing. And yeah, here we are.
There we go. And then I did check out your Instagram before we hopped on as well. And as you mentioned, the nursery, like doing Alex's Six, is it allowing you to do things that maybe you not aren't necessarily doing with the nursery that you're like, man, this is a weird idea. I don't know if it would necessarily fit this band, but it might fit my solo project and the way that I go about that. Was that kind of like the catalyst for you to start Alex's Six as like, listen, I have some weird ideas. How far can I take these? How out there can I take these? Was that kind of like the thought process behind that?
Absolutely, yeah, you nailed that. The band it was really like a democratic situation, and we got a thing going on with
Sure, sure,
every.
sure.
And what, the members did end up changing over time too. Like one of my best friends and drummer is actually banned from Canada now, and he got banned a
Oh
couple
my
years
god.
ago. Yeah, for the stupidest, most insignificant thing, which we can get into later. But um, and that kind of put like a real block on
Sure, sure,
everything.
sure. Yeah.
And after that, everybody kind of had their own thing that they wanted to do. Then like you said, I really wanted to pursue these crazy ideas.
Hmm.
So I didn't want to like kind of force feed that on everybody. So the timing just seemed right to develop my own thing, and it's not extremely different. It's just more of my vibe and stuff versus like more of a collaborative process.
Sure, and I feel like whenever I have like artists that are like a part of a solo project and then versus like people who are in bands or sometimes even the band members themselves have their own side projects, I always feel like the main focus of just kind of a side project or having it be mainly more of the focal point is just because you want the freedom to be able to kind of do whatever you want and you don't have to be like, okay, so and so, like, what do you think about this idea? It's just like you can just hold a mirror up and be like, okay, this is great. I like this. This is me. Like, this is what I want to do. And this is how far reaching, like, you're only in control of how far out you want to go. And if you want to go out there with your sound, then you can absolutely do that.
Yeah, you learn a lot about yourself, and you definitely make more mistakes because
Sure.
there's many people to kind of rein you in. But I actually love that experience, and the whole exists project has been super eye opening, and I've grown so much in that sense.
Sure.
And I would suggest that like all musicians kind of try a bit of both. Some people have started as like a solo thing and they have like their hired band,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
you know you really need you really need both, like I think, to grow and evolve as an artist.
Yeah, and I think you even add like a third element to that of self-producing your material as well, because I think that even in and of itself is a very like liberating process as well, because you're taking these songs, the ones that you've recorded, and you're like, how can I make this interesting? How can I make this different? And that was like the coolest thing about listening to Dancing with Chaos was just kind of like the different things that you could kind of pick out, and I feel like it's a song that I need to go back and listen to more times to kind of like be like, "Oh, that part was cool. I didn't hear that the first time I listened to it." And then, maybe on the fifth attempt around, there would be even something else that I didn't even notice within the song itself, maybe further on in the deeper on in the track. So, I got to give a lot of credit to you, Alex, because I think it's interesting of a listen where to me, like, I am not as familiar with the sort of grunge and the sort of pop, like that grunge pop duo mix. Um, but I felt like it was such a distinct track of like different sounds, different vibes, that I know I can get more out of it as I continue to listen to it and break it up and piecemeal it off a little bit more. So I got to give you kudos for that.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. Um, yeah, I mean that's great to hear. That's always something that I try to strive for. I don't like burnout with
Sure.
songs. I kind of have like a maximalist nature to all the songs as well. Like I really love big pastiche.
Oh
Like I
yeah.
love these songs like paintings. I love listening to minimalist music and things like that. But it's just not what I make. And I definitely always put in like Easter eggs, and there's so many layers, and I really do want it to sound a little bit like a new experience each time. And I have to say, I do work with other producers sometimes. So like some of the songs are co-produced. It's not
Sure.
100% me. So I do work with some like really great people for certain elements of the song. But for instance, in Dancing with Chaos, like you know, it it's it can kind of be boiled down into this grunge pop thing,
Sure. Sure.
but
Sure.
I'm upset. Like for me, when people ask me like, "What are you influenced by?" or something, I just say like the history of music of what I've consumed up till now. Because like
Sure.
I used to work in a record store, like I've been
Oh,
doing it
nice.
for like 10 years. Like I love Americana, 50s music and rock and roll. I love 60s psychedelic. I love 70s glam and disco, whatever. I love the 80s electron. I love it's all, there's great stuff always there. So like I'm always drawing from everything. And like in Dancing with Chaos, like, yeah, the guitars are kind of maybe pulled out from the grunge era, and the drums kind of have like a huge like Led Zeppelin kind of feel, but all the keyboards are like straight up like maybe Beatles and things like
Oh,
that.
okay.
I use like
Yeah.
Mellotron keyboards and like music boxes, and then like there's some harpsichords on there, which is like a throwback to classical stuff.
Mhm, mhm.
It all kind of goes through the exists blender, and then I, you know I just rely on like when I put my vocals and like my lyrics in there, it just hopefully sounds like its own thing at the end of the day, where it's not so much like a look at all these genres. It's kind of boils down into something hopefully a little more singular.
Sure, sure, sure. I think it's a cool melting pot, and I appreciate the level of detail going through kind of like the different generations of music. Like, I think there is an important nature of that. I always stress that, like, my parents, taught me the love of like classic rock music. Like, they're 70s rock, 80s rock, like that sort of stuff. And then I got more into like 90s music. So, like, Linkin Park, like those sorts of like, emo bands, stuff like that. And I branched even further out from there. But I appreciate the nature of, and I think it probably has somewhat to do with working for a record store where there's a wide variety of music, like, and kind of tuning yourself out to a certain genre or a certain type of music from maybe a generation that isn't yours. That doesn't mean it's not good music. It's just maybe it just doesn't hit you the same way. But I do appreciate the fact that you had taken specific pieces of your life or music that has influenced you and kind of just said like, okay, I like this element, let me take that out. I like this element from this, let me pull from here. And then having the kind of production knowledge of being like, okay, well, how am I going to tie all of these things together? And I think vocally as well too, like, it ties all of those different elements that you wouldn't feel like might work together if you looked at it from like a very like outside perspective, but having those vocals and the way that they tailor everything else together, I think it really makes for an interesting piece of music, and I'm excited to listen to the rest of what you have going on. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for. I imagine there's some sort of like EP or album in the works down the pipeline, certainly. But
Yeah,
I
the album coming out.
an album coming out. All right, so I'll have to be keeping an eye out for it because I think this is a good starting point, at least for me, and not knowing anything about your artistry and what you do, because I don't feel like it's abrasive in the way that, like, if you looked at the genre and you looked at the email, you'd be like, okay, how are these gonna work? And that was kind of my thought when Jason sent me the email. I was like, how, like, it's worded out well, but I, like, for some
I don't
reason it just didn't compute, like there was something about it. I looked at it, read it, and I just still was like, how is this gonna work? And then it wasn't really until I listened to the song and then obviously of having the conversation with you now, Alex, that I'm like, okay, it makes sense now. So maybe you have to watch this interview, and then maybe it'll make sense to you as well. But I thought it was very interesting, again, piece of music, and I'm excited to get into the album. When it drops, it looks like that the date I have is May 26th. So we're gonna
Mhm.
we're gonna see if that's gonna work out. But in regards to what you do, Alex, obviously, right now you have Dancing with Chaos out now, but is there any song maybe beyond that one that you're excited that kind of give people an idea of your sound and what you do? Because I know it's very varied, and I feel like that's a very hard question for you to nail down. But is there any song in particular that you feel like encompasses what you do?
Well, because this is such a new project, it's almost easy to answer that because only have two singles before this one.
Okay.
So I did two. So those would be a good place to start. And one of them's called Rock On. The other one's called Never Christmas Without You. It's Christmas tune. So that's a good place to start with Exists. But if you want to dive a little deeper, I would just say anything with the Nursery. Just any of the
Ooh. Okay.
there's two albums there. So there's definitely you hear the echoes of Exists, but the influence of other creative people as well. So that'd be the best place to kind of go if you want to go deeper and start with my earlier singles. And yeah, there's a lot of songs from the record that I'm really excited to drop. There's some very cool stuff. They definitely don't all sound like Dancing with Chaos, but they have the same spirit.
Okay. The same energy. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. And just to go on what you're talking about before, like, yeah, we all listen to things that touch us or don't touch us, but like in this post internet kind of world, I really do think genres are kind of irrelevant in
I
a
would agree.
sense,
Yeah.
and why can't you have distorted guitar with a violin, with a synthesizer, with whatever. It's that's the most exciting thing actually for me, that it seems like people are actually opening up to this idea now. Because even when I was playing with the nursery, everybody like this like 2016, 2017, when we were a lot more active,
Hmm.
it just already seemed like the environment back then was still kind of clicky when it came to
Sure,
genre.
I would agree.
You know,
Yeah.
if you're an indie band, you gotta sound indie. You can't, or if you're whatever, something else. And I with my guitar playing, like I'm the first guitarist that I really fell in love with, and the first type of music was surf rock and like any of
Oh,
that rockabilly and twang, just
yeah.
reverb, the tremolo, all those things. So I I've kept that throughout like pretty much all my music as much as I can, but
Yeah,
that doesn't
sure.
mean just like go distorted power chords like in Dancing with Chaos either. So um, yeah, so I love that, and I'm very much like leaning into this, post internet. We have access to everything,
Oh, yeah.
and we're making singular music, and I think it's really about like the artist and how the artist is bringing together everything is what's interesting, not necessarily what they're called, but we all have to classify something at the end of the day.
Sure,
So
yeah, yeah. I agree. I think there's this level of like I don't know when it maybe shifted. I guess I would say more so like during the pandemic because I think people just had more of an opportunity to just like sit down and listen to music. Like I think even beforehand, like I would listen to albums. Well, I mean, I do this, so I feel like for me, it's like I listen to albums all the time. But I would imagine for like the normal person that is just like, they're like, I put it on in my car while like I'm sitting in traffic for like an hour. You know what I mean? Like it's not something that is crucial to them. And then I feel like during the pandemic, people had more time to listen to music. They had more time to watch like interviews and things of that nature about different artists. And I also feel like if they're like, "Hey, listen, if we're gonna be locked inside, we might as well just try to push our boundaries and see where we can go," right? And so I think during that time period was the time where people were like, "Oh, listen, like I can write whatever I want. I can piecemeal two genres together and do the blender thing and just like see what works, right?" And that's awesome because I think that allowed people to just be as creative. I hope that allowed people to just kind of recharge their batteries and allow them to just create because they want to create, not because like they're like, oh, okay, well, we're an indie band, so we have to have this thing, this thing, this thing in order to be an indie band. So I don't know,
yeah,
my take.
yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you there. That makes sense, and it's difficult to. It's actually not. It's harder to do that successfully. Like it's easier to just be like, we're a metal band, or we're a rock band, or
Hmm.
we're a pop band, because the blueprint's there. You're going to have this kind of bass. You're usually going to have a certain select type of sounds, but there's so much music out there now. Everyone's making music that like you almost need to do something a little crazier,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
making disparaging elements work together is hard. It's not like and the other thing is you're kind of working against the algorithms too.
Oh yeah.
It's like they want you to be the same.
Oh, of course they do. Yeah.
They want the sameness, so they know what you are, and they just whatever. So they actually don't like that kind of individual like thing. But I
Yeah.
think if
Sure.
enough
Sure.
people start doing it, then who cares? At least people will be making interesting art.
Yeah. I also feel like not to sound like cut against the grain or anything, but I think there is that necessity of like having that sort of cut against the grain where like I don't feel like pu- I don't feel like artists would be pushing the boundaries in the way that they do if they weren't trying to like do something different or be something different or the way they kind of compose tracks and I think there's just a lot more attention to detail and then as well as that just kind of being free to just write however you want to write, even if it does mean like algorithmically it may not, work out as well. I think that I would rather listen to an artist that is willing to step out of their comfort zone, to kind of branch out and do new things. Like I kind of find that if you're an artist and you're always trying to kind of innovate and do something different, but still have your like core way that you do things, then that's like all the power to you. I think that's like one of the best things you can do. I kind of am not a fan of like when a band has like they'll release an album and then the next album is like kind of like a carbon copy of that album, and it's just like why even release the second album, because you're gonna get that hate that you didn't innovate enough, and then you have people that you just can't win. I feel like that as an artist it's tough, but I can see I would hope more people have an open-mindedness to just go out and do different things, just because you should do it would make your material better because you're allowed to like be more creative and do what you want to do.
Absolutely. Well said.
Well, thank you, Alex. Appreciate it. The next question I have for you is I have to mention it because we did mention it earlier, the Dancing with Chaos music video. I have to give you a lot of kudos for that. I did see a partial clip on Instagram and I was like, am I like am I on drugs or something? Like this is like it's kind of wild, and I think it's great because the way that the song kind of works with the music video, they just work really well in tandem together. So I would highly recommend it if you can watch the music video. I would definitely do it, because I think it gives you more of an experience because you could listen to the song and be like, oh, this is a good song, but like watching it and listening to it, 10 out of 10. I would highly recommend doing that because I think I appreciated the song a little bit more. I appreciated the way you went about the music video. And, how was that process? It seems, I feel like it was a very interesting way of just kind of like how the music video was shot, the different kind of like artistic angles you used within the music video itself. I got to give you a lot of kudos on that because I thought that was the most entrancing thing about like the song and the music video together was just the visuals. I thought that was really well done.
Thank you. Yeah, visuals are super important to me all the time. With as like a counterpart to the music, so it's definitely always something that I spend a lot of time thinking of, even when I'm writing song. Um, but that video, yeah, was really fun to make. I have to give a lot of kudos to Agatha, who was the director on that. So she came up with a lot of the concepts of what we see in that video. But I knew that together we wanted it to kind of reflect the song's sense of it's kind of like a lullaby for the end of the world,
Sure, yeah.
or chaos. It's not really about like it's not just like the explosion. It's being like sucked into a vortex of it's kind of like that calm before the storm. Um, so she really helped bring that out in the video. Singing, having projections like directly on your face is definitely hard on the eyes.
Sure.
So I lost some eyesight for it. So
Oh,
hopefully it's worth it. And yeah, just having being in that kind of zone of what do they call it? The uncanny valley, where
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
something is you it looks normal, but it's just off a little bit, where you're really thinking like, where am I? And it kind of takes you into that different place, kind of like a psychedelic nature, and that's what I love about psychedelic music, and I always try to bring that in my own way into the tunes.
Yeah, it felt a little left to center. Like you watch the visual and you're like, am I like you said, you're like feeling something, but it's like not like something about it is like right, but just like it's like you put a photo on the wall and it's just like crooked in like the slightest of ways. That's how I felt. Like I was sitting here listening to it as we were getting set up, and I don't know if you had saw me, but I was like kind of making faces at the computer because I was just like, this is so interesting, and it's like you can look at it and just be so intrigued by it, but then I was also like, well, I actually have to listen to music because why have Alex on if I can't listen to the music, right? So I'm like listening to the music and I'm trying to watch this like almost uncanny valley sort of like music video, and I was like getting more into the actual visual aspect of things and moving slightly away from the music, and the music almost like I don't want to say took a back seat, but like you said, it almost has this like entrancing sort of like way of like flowing throughout the song, but then you look at the visuals and you're like, I could continue watching this. This is pretty enticing, you know?
Yeah, well, that's cool. I always thought like the best compliment an artist could get is like if their work. I mean, and I'm a big believer that after you do something, put it out, it really is like has nothing to do with you anymore. Like it
Sure.
really belongs to. So and like as long as it can kind of get in someone's head and like start rearranging the furniture up there and so that you just kind of see everything slightly different and you don't really know why. I feel like that's really I love that with with my favorite stuff that I watch, that just like it just takes me and like it changes you, like
Oh, yeah.
you look at things like kind of different, and I love that. So yeah, I'm glad you liked it so
Yeah, the
much.
furniture was definitely rearranged in my brain. I'm gonna try to fix it when we get done with this interview, but still a little messed up. I'll have to shake out all the webs in my head. But um in regards to, obviously as we mentioned, there's an album going to be coming out. Do you have any plans on doing something in the similar vein, or being a little bit more avant-garde with some more of the visuals in regards to the music videos possibly coming out?
Yeah, I hope so. So there's gonna be two more singles that are gonna be leading up to the record. Both are gonna have videos. I'm just producing those now. Um, just kind of idea, and I always co-direct more or less the videos. I'm really hands-on with that because I'm a videographer as well.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Um, typically, yeah, and and yeah, so I really want to keep that thread of kind of fun, avant-garde, kind of surreal, otherworldly, kind of stuff going. But don't want to repeat myself either.
Sure, yeah.
So we're just thinking, yeah, we got some good ideas coming up, and yeah, probably gonna be producing them pretty soon, actually.
There we go. Well, if you guys are into some cerebral music videos, then I'll leave a link to Dancing with Chaos in the description. I I hope if you did if things were messed up in your head just like a little bit after watching the music video, I need to know in the comments. I don't want to feel like I'm the only one that happened to. If I did, I probably should go see a doctor or something. But good to know that that was kind of the point of the music video. So
It's supposed to shake you. Yeah, it's like if you're not shaken up and you're like walking through life a little bit too, let's call it like if you're just like coasting a little,
sure,
it's supposed to shake you up. It's supposed to rearrange that furniture and make you be like, what the hell is going on, kind of thing, or what am I feeling? If you're not feeling something, it's supposed to make you feel something. However, if you are in a chaotic place and you are experiencing maybe a bit too much, I did want the lullaby, vortex, hypnotic kind of nature of the song to slow you down and actually ground you, and that's what it was for me in terms of like just personally, like when
sure.
it was written, it was very much like me in a chaotic place trying to distill it into something more calm. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if people had a different, if it brought them to the other end of the spectrum.
The flip flop, I think it's the I was trying to kind of nail out why I feel like I enjoyed the music video as well as the music as well. I think it's just the juxtaposition. Like the musicality of it is, like you said, very much kind of like very like lullaby, very vibey, very moody, and then like the music video is very like it grabs you and kind of like shakes you a little bit. And that is like I think that was what really stuck out to me the most, was just the fact that like those two things run in tandem together, but like because you're watching them together, they kind of like cross wires a little bit, and then you're left in that middle point between the cross wires, and I'm like, there was something about it, like as you mentioned, there was something about it where there's this calming sense of it, but then because if your life is like more just like you just live by the seat of your pants, then like it can seem like everything might seem like it's in place, but if you're in the inverse position, then like you're like what the fuck did I just watch? Like, this is wild. So,
Yeah.
so hopefully you guys experience something. I need to know in the comments because listen, I felt very I don't know if Alex was able to see me while I was just watching the music video while he was in the room here, but man, I was making some janky faces. So, I hope he could if he did, cool. If not, I'm not gonna be mad. We were trying to figure out some audio issues earlier, so we were able to obviously get that sorted out. But yeah, I was making some faces, Alex,
I saw
if you
the
didn't catch.
faces. I saw the faces, but I thought it was just like because the audio issues. I wasn't sure.
Well,
But
that we'll have to go back and we can't go back in time yet, but if we could, I would share that memory with you. But um, the next question I have for you, Alex, is what are you listening to more currently? What have you been jamming recently in terms of your Spotify listening?
Spotify listening. So you know, I will get into who I've been listening to, who I really like, but just because it's like production time and crunch time for my record, it's just been nonstop my songs. And like, I'm actually looking forward to just, I got like a week or two left with the mixing, and I'm just gonna like binge other music for as possible because I've listened to these songs enough at this point. But some stuff that's always inspiring me is I love Trent Moeller.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
are you familiar with his stuff?
I am familiar with his stuff. Yeah.
I really like it. He's just like an amazing producer. I love the mood. It's beautiful. It's freaky. It's intense. Like, it has all these great juxtapositions as well. So I've been listening to that. It's been a big reference for the record. Um, yeah, it's been a big one. Sometimes I listen back to like the David Bowie stuff. He's
Oh,
my favorite.
yeah.
He's my favorite of like that time. Just for like again, like theatrical, bringing together multiple things. Really kind of, I just see him as such a true artist, especially at the end of his life, like the way he just made everything in his
Oh,
life like an
yeah.
artistic statement. And then on like the heavier stuff, I've been kind of like going back to my like all the stuff I used to listen to, um, like in the early 2000s and stuff. And I went to go see Rammstein play and
Oh,
in
nice.
in Montreal, and they were fuck man, it was like such a great show and an incredible band. Like, you know, people, it's funny, like people kind of chuckle a bit when you mention them, but like such well designed songs, just so tasteful and great.
I
So
agree.
I'm a sucker for that stuff.
I love that. I feel like, yeah, I feel like you got to have those moments when you can go back and listen to some like things that like make you excited. Like there's plenty of albums that I go back to and listen to that I like jammed out in my like early childhood or like in my early teens and just was like, man, I love this album so much. And I go back and listen to it and I think like you find a new appreciation for some of those older albums that kind of shaped you. And it's cool to take a look back and be a little bit nostalgic about it, you know?
Yeah, and you're like, and I particularly love thinking like, why did I like this? Like was there, and not with them, but like some other stuff, And I'm just like, there must be something about it that you love. So I love
Sure.
kind of looking back and being like, oh, it's just like this drum sound, or I just love the songwriting, let's say from somebody, or whatever it is. So I always find it interesting because like everybody, my tastes have changed so
Oh, yeah.
much.
Oh, yeah.
There's like a point in time where I only listened to synth music and like,
Wow.
yeah, like just like electro pop kind of stuff or whatever, or like disco and everything. And then there was a period of time where I only listened to harpsichord music, like in classical for like a good couple months, because I just needed to shift it. I just needed to shift things away, and I get really fascinated and kind of obsessed with things. So
Sure. Yeah.
or like an artist, I'll find someone, I'll just like binge their whole thing for a couple weeks or something. But
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I think it makes it interesting. And I think it also probably, I'd imagine it affects you in a way since, you do a lot of the production on your writing. I think it helps kind of shape like, okay, and as you mentioned, like why do you go back to albums that you love? Like, what do you love about these albums? And you're like, oh, I like this drum sound. Like, how can I incorporate this into what I do? I think that's very much like that producer like brain, you know,
Yeah,
like you're like, oh, I really like that guitar tone. Like I'm gonna figure out how to like craft that and like throw that into my music. So I feel that. I also like I'm not a producer, but I feel like anytime I listen to any sort of music, like my main focal point is like guitar. So like I've been playing guitar for quite a long time, and that's like the first thing my brain like whenever I listen to a song, I'm like, all right, do these guitars like what's going on riff wise, what's going on like melodically, like those are the things that I kind of point out, and then everything else kind of comes in formulation after that, like vocals, like that's the next thing I'm like kind of working on. And so like those are things that I kind of pick out that as you mentioned, like you go back and listen to albums, you're like, why is this like such a momentous thing that has carried throughout my life? So I appreciate the attention to detail. I think it certainly doesn't go unnoticed within your music, you know?
cool. Yeah, it's definitely that part of like the producer brain where I'm always thinking like I'm not really like I do listen to music as a fan, but like I sometimes don't always know if I'm listening because like it's like reading like a
Yeah.
book or you're like you know it's just you're gathering like
Information, yeah.
yeah. And like for instance, just with Rammstein, like the thing I love most about their productions is how heavy they are, but they have this like the vocal is always kind of like has this operatic kind
Oh,
of like
yeah.
it just floats like like an opera singer. You know, sometimes they have the female vocals too, but it's like so soft and beautiful, but everything else is so
Like
like
punchy.
like I find that's just like a beautiful contrast or juxtaposition that I love. And actually, I tried to go for it a little bit with Dancing with Chaos. I had a singer, Eris, do the backup vocals. There's like
Oh,
a
nice.
high, like feminine vocal that's happening like in the choruses, doing like and it's kind of floating above, like kind of angelically. So yeah, that's for instance, that's how that was inspired.
That's awesome. Shout out to Rammstein, you know, I haven't seen them live. I know they only come out of the woodworks to tour very infrequently, but I hope the next time I'm able to see them live, that would be. I've seen some videos and photos and stuff, and I'm like, man, they look like they put on a just insane show. So I have to get my homework on and
Oh
listen
yeah.
to some more Ramstein. But the next question I have for you, Alex, is a fun one. If you could pick a song to cover, what would it be?
Goodbye Horses by
Oh,
Q Lazarus.
okay.
Um, I am gonna cover that one probably at some point. So uh, maybe that'll maybe that one's not as fun because I'll probably do it. But that I've wanted to cover that forever. I just love that song. And I don't know. There are a couple covers of it that exist, and none of them really like blow me away. So I want to do that, and one that probably won't happen, but I've always wanted to cover a Yoko Ono song.
Okay.
Like, because I also like her stuff a lot. Um, and who else? Like Kate Bush. I've always wanted to cover
Oh,
like
okay.
some one of her like deeper cuts. I really like The Dreaming. She has a record called The Dreaming, which I believe she produced like entirely herself on a synthesizer. And
Wow.
I don't love all her stuff, but that record is just so cool, and there's so many crazy songs on it. So either Kate or Yoko song, or maybe we'll do Goodbye Horses on the next record. I don't know, probably one of those three.
There we go. I love it. Well, guys, if you have any suggestions for Alex,
Yeah,
drop them in the comments. I can't guarantee that Alex will do it, but you know, I just gonna put it out there. So we'll see what
yeah,
happens.
yeah.
The next question I have for you, Alex, is if you could pick somebody to collaborate with on an up and coming Alex Exists record, is there anybody you'd like to work with?
Oh, there's so many people. Is this like realistic or like pipe dream?
I feel like you should give me a realistic option, one that you feel like there is like a very good possibility it could happen. And then I would also give me one that's just like we're shooting for the stars, manifesting this, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I would love to work with Trent Moeller on some level, just for the production. the production's so great. Like I kind of, to be honest, I don't always love producing every song that I write. Sometimes I just want to be the
The
songwriter.
artist. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I think I would love, as a producer, I would love to collaborate with him as the producer. I think that'd be amazing. Um, and I don't know, I love Mother Mother. They're a Canadian
Ooh,
band here. I opened up for them once like years ago, and that was the first time I actually ever saw them play or heard them, was when they did their sound check and then their show, and I was like so blown away by their songwriting and just the voices and
sure.
everything. So yeah, Ryan Gildemond, I would love to do something with him. That would be great. If you're
Oh,
listening, Ryan.
do it up, Brian.
Yeah.
That'd be very sick. Guys, if you want to make that happen, you can tag Alex on Twitter and then, obviously tag his suggestions, type in collaboration, and who knows. I believe that, at least I would hope some of you can do that. If you love Alex enough, I feel like you should do it. I would feel really upset if that like didn't happen. And I just met Alex, so I don't want to let him down. So if you could help me out, that'd be kind of sick. Be all about it. Next question I have for you, Alex, is kind of the piggyback on what you said earlier about sometimes you want to be the artist and not do the production thing. So why did you ultimately decide to produce your own music? Because I feel like sometimes, like a lot of times when you're an artist, you're like, man, I really want to just go out there and do something crazy. And then the producer mindset of your head is like, listen, how am I going to put all of these crazy thoughts into like one song, make it succinct, mix it, master it, and then like shove it out to the masses for, people to listen to? Do you find that do you find that it's hard to kind of switch off the brain from being like the producer role of things and the artist role of things and vice versa?
It is hard. It is hard. The reason why I did it though is because I do, as much as they're different, they are very similar,
Hmm.
and I feel like you have to, just for your own self expression, you do need to learn how to produce a little bit. I think
Sure.
everybody does need to learn that a little bit, and I just found like I wasn't getting the vision across. Like as the artist, I had my song, and like I would play guitar, would be my main instrument at the time,
Hmm.
and I was just like, I wanted to be like this, and with like this record and that record, and kind of like how I was doing it. And then they'll be like, okay, let's produce and mix, and here it is. I'm like, well, that's not really what I was feeling. But
Sure.
and it was too many situations like that, and it gets too, even with the band, like with the nursery and in my previous band, you can't ever expect anybody to see what's inside your head. If you're really passionate about something and drives you nuts and it's keeping you up and you're thinking about it all the time, you can just, it's yours, like you can't expect someone to even hear what you're hearing, even if you describe it out. So it was kind of out of necessity. I really just needed to learn how to produce these sounds on my own so it could just be there. And then I relied on like, I guess, co-producers to, kind of clean it up and rein it in a
Sure.
little bit, and kind of explain to me like what was actually possible, like in a record, because you only have a certain amount of sonic space and you can't just like,
Just keep cramming stuff in. Yeah.
yeah, that was one of the biggest lessons. So it was really a necessity to just make the stuff I wanted to make. I was making too many records and song and um, recordings that were just not, I always listen back. I'm like, I don't want to keep working on this. Like it's done, like do it, move on. But it was never really satisfying me the way it had to. So yeah, and then as soon as I started learning how to produce a little bit more, everything started coming together a lot better, and it was the way I wanted to see it. So yeah, kind of out of necessity a little bit. It's like every like if you're a photographer, you need to learn how to edit your photos
Yeah.
and do post. You can't just be the photographer. If you're a videographer, you got to learn how to do, again, editing or post processing, color, composition, which is kind of like the production of the lens based crafts. Or if you're like things like that. So with music, it's like you can play and compose, but you gotta be able to like capture and perhaps color it kind of with
Sure, sure, sure.
effects, you know. But so that's kind of my philosophy behind it. But at the same time, like yeah, like the mixing, which is a lot more technical, is something that is very different from being like like the creative side of it. Let's say. I mean, you can be creative in the mixing, but yeah, that's the part I wish sometimes I didn't have to do because it's like you're listening for little
Minute
clicks
things, yeah.
and like the EQ curves, amount of pressure, and how deep like the delays are. And I'm just like, I'm just trying to deliver this line, like I don't like can't. It takes me forever. Sometimes like my output's a little slow because I'm always kind of doing everything. But
Sure,
I'm
sure,
trying
sure.
to work with more. Yeah, I'm working with more people now, and typically I have somebody who's like mixing the majority of my stuff. So
I've
yeah,
I feel that, as someone who does content creation and I'm the only one who does all of the stuff you see here on the channel, like I get it. Like that's like I feel like there is that necessity and I could totally find a lot of like parallels to what I do. Like, like I started doing this because I was just like I want to start like I love music. Like how am I going to like do it other than like to do it online or like go in person and see people at shows? Like there was that necessity to have it or to go out and buy a camera and do it. Then I have to buy microphones and I have to buy a computer that can edit this sort of stuff and learn how to
yep,
use the editing software. Like there's so many processes. So I feel your like blessing and curse of doing it
yeah,
because I get it.
yeah. Like you feel kind of more empowered now too. Like
Oh yeah.
you had to learn, basically photography, or you had to learn audio engineering to some level to understand kind of what's going on with sound. So it can be very empowering.
Oh, 100%. It's definitely necessary, especially if you're doing something like this and like you almost are incentivized to just go out and seek it out, because like it's gonna save you this amount of time. Like I found this one video recently where this guy was like, "Okay, here's how you can like save so much time editing your videos." And then I it never really came across to me as something important, but then like when you're sitting at your computer desk for hours and you're like, "Man, how am I going to cut this up?" And this guy shows you like a technique that can cut out like no pun
Takes
intended. That made my life good. Like salutes to the guy that made that DaVinci Resolve video. You like I'm set. But it's but to me it's like I get when I have artists on that are also their own producers because I think there's just like not to say like bands that go to other producers are not as good or not as talented, but I think there is that extra level of drive or want to know that you're like I have a specific sound, this is what I want to do, how am I going to do it? I gotta learn how to do it because I'm the only one who can like take all of this in my head and like formulate it in a video or like put it into an album or whatever. So I got to give you a lot of kudos on that, Alex, because if anybody I feel like understands that it's people who do their own stuff, like that's very much like an in-house sort of philosophy. So I
yeah.
I 100% get that. So again, major kudos to you, Alex, for doing that. But
No, well, likewise, you're out here doing it too.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. The next question, Alex. I know you did mention it earlier about video games, and I'm a huge video game fan, so I feel like I have to ask you this question. If you could be a video game character, who would you be?
Oh man, Bomberman.
Bomberman. All right. I haven't heard that name in a little bit, so I like that.
Yeah,
It,
I'm very much in a classic,
okay.
the first two PlayStations, up Nintendo Super up until 64. Um, I think I had a Sega Genesis at one point. But yes, that kind of era.
Oh yeah, that's like classic video games. You can't go wrong with that. So, I'm on board with that. That's a great answer. Like I said, haven't heard that in a little minute, so it's always good to give Bomberman some love. So Definitely a good answer. The next question I have for you is, Alex, if you were to compile a dream tour lineup, who would be on it?
Tour lineup.
Yeah, including yourself. I feel like that's, obvious, but I just wanted to mention it just in case.
Well, I would always want to play with Mother Mother. I think they're one of the best live bands in Canada for
Mm.
one of the best Canadian live bands. And they put on a great show. Um, or I don't know, do I want to go like really theatrical? Like the thing about I'm thinking like what's like realistic, right? Like, our tunes are kind of like can I think go hand in hand. So yeah, they're great. When I played with them at one point, it was so good. It was in like a little club in Buffalo, actually.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
like 150 people capacity or something like that. It was crazy because now they're playing like Massey Hall and stuff like that. So
Kudos.
uh, yeah. Um, what's another dream lineup? I don't know. Like I'm thinking of all my like old favorites, who are like I'm like please tour again or something.
Well, who
Like
knows? Maybe they'll watch this and get inspired to come back.
nah, they probably won't. Like I'm talking like Tom Waits and like people like this. Like
Ah, okay, yeah.
people are like kind of just like they're done. They're just kind of like you know. Um, Chromatics. I love the
Oh,
Chromatics.
okay.
Yeah, I would love to play with them. Love love their stuff. And yeah, maybe like Mother Mother, Chromatics, the Rapture is pretty fun.
Oh, okay.
I like that. I like that live. The music's kind of has like that dance punk kind of energy. All the
Sure.
songs kind of. I like the dancey kind of punky stuff. So anything in that kind of world would I think be an awesome little thing.
I like it. I like it. Next question for you, Alex, is I'm sure you got some good answers on this one since, as you mentioned, you're a very like audio visual type of person. But what is your favorite movie, favorite TV show? Because I imagine you got to have some.
Yeah. Okay. Well, favorite movie. That's just like so impossible. But I'll list you my favorite directors, and we'll see what comes. So
Okay.
Kubrick, Todd Solondz, I guess Wes Anderson, um, Yorgos Lanthimos, um, you know, uh, yeah. So like they all have like some of my favorite films.
Hmm.
But like to pick one out, Mandy. Did you see that movie Mandy
I have
recently?
not. No.
It's crazy. It
I
has like
should check it
Nicholas.
out.
Yeah, yeah. You should check that one out. It's kind of like Neon Demon, but not as just different. It's
Okay.
got it's got Nicolas Cage, and it's
Oh,
amazing.
okay. Say
Uh,
less.
yeah. So yeah, there's a couple things there, and TV shows. Um, you know, uh, I don't honestly watch a lot of TV shows.
That's fair.
I liked Ratchet.
Oh,
Was like
okay.
yeah, because I like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That the movie that it's based off, or
Okay.
they based Nurse Ratchet is a character in that movie. It's like a 1970s movie about like a group of people in a asylum who basically
Mhm.
break out. And yeah, so I watched that one kind of recently. I watched the Ricky Gervais series not too long ago, the
Hmm.
one Afterlife, I think. It's like I like dark comedies. When it comes
Okay.
to TV, I'm very much like dark comedy. I'm not like into like super aesthetic things. I just love like really good dark comedy. Like I love Monty Python, all that kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
stuff. So that's like my um, dark comedy movies that are great. There's a movie called Happiness. I everybody should watch that. It's
Okay.
so unnerving and hilarious. I love things that are unnerving and hilarious. That like you're not sure if you're supposed to laugh, but you absolutely have to laugh.
Okay. I have to give that one a
Um,
watch then. I haven't heard of that one either, so I'll have to. I have a list now. Alex
yeah,
recommended picks.
yeah. So yeah, those are kind of like the highlights. But I've seen like the other bit, like um, oh, 6 Feet Under was pretty good. That's like
Okay,
a
yeah.
classic series. But yeah, to be honest, I'm not really a TV series person. But yeah, movies. I love movies.
I feel that I'm kind of the same way. People ask me like they're like, "Oh, well, like what's your favorite TV show?" And I'm like, "Usually never have enough time to watch TV, and if I do, like I'm watching like YouTube on my TV as I'm like going to sleep." And it was just like, "How to become a better interviewer." And then it's just like step 1, do the interview. I'm like, "Shit." Man,
That's
God.
hilarious, man.
I'm ar-
Yeah, I
I'm
love
already
pod. I mean,
behind the 8 ball on that one, you know.
now you're getting there. I,
Oh,
I love
thank you.
podcasts as well. Like like I love. There's so many podcasts like Theo Vaughn. He's got like such a
Yes.
fun.
Yeah, he's great.
Like I'd rather watch him just talk with someone for an hour and a half than watch a Game of Thrones. Like no hate on the
Yeah, sure,
series.
sure, sure. Same. I'm the
Like,
same way.
I'm just more engaged with it. It's just it's yeah. I don't know. I don't really like fantasy. I do, and it's like kind of otherworldly nature. But I
Sure,
love
sure.
like real stuff. I just love when there's like things happening, like this person talking and telling the story. They exist, and we can talk to them. And
Oh, yeah. It's like I like people are surprised. They're like, "Oh, like what do you do in your free time like when you're not interviewing bands?" And I'm like, "If I'm going to bed, like I'm either sitting here at this computer desk like editing like a fuck ton of videos or I am like laying in bed like getting ready for bed and I'll watch like I love watching Hot Ones, so I'll watch like Sean Evans interview insert guest here.
yeah,
And it's cool because like I'm learning how he's interviewing, which is probably about the most nerdiest thing I can think of. But yes, I do watch Sean Evans to like figure out how he kind of like gets these sort of questions out there and like the way that he kind of thinks about like the different people he has on his show. So I kind of take a lot of influence from that. And then also like I love watching like the whoever he interviews just sweat because those hot sauces are I've had them all before, so I know that seat. So I know I know the pain they're going through. So
so you're a heat freak.
I am a little bit. I will say shout outs to my roommate. So for New Year's, he bought like the hot one box of like all the hot sauces you can get. And I've had most of them, but I tried like their hottest one, the double X or whatever. I don't even remember what it's called now at this point, but the spiciest one that they have, and I was like, this is like really spicy, but it doesn't hit you right away, and then like as you like sit there with the sauce a little bit it starts to build, but I'm almost positive like after you break through to bomb it's just like your taste buds are incinerated to the point where like it's just like you could put something hot in your tongue and you're like man that's hot, but like you wouldn't be able to taste any of it because your taste buds have been seared off. So would not recommend it for most people, but if you do tend to like hot sauces, I will say like the hot one's hot sauce, the hottest one they have, has good flavor, but also isn't like you'll. It's not like you're like, oh man, I'm tasting just like a battery or something, you know.
Yeah, no, it's a brilliant show. I mean, it's so good, and yeah, I'm pretty sure that it doesn't actually go sequentially hotter as well. Because I don't know if you noticed, but it always goes hot, and you're always getting more and more, like weirded out, and then it kind of like dips for the last one. I always notice they have the last one, and they don't freak out as much as the early ones.
Oh
So
yeah,
I feel like he kind of fakes them out, where like he gives them the worst, but then at the end, the last one's not the worst. It's kind of like how he wraps it up at the end.
oh yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
but yeah, no, I love that one too. It's great.
I think realistically because I've had them all in like sequential order before, and I do feel like I think it's because your brain is so messed up from the bomb that like it doesn't matter if you're eating like the sauce could be like hotter, quote unquote, based off of like the unit, like the Scoville unit, but that doesn't necessarily mean like you're like, oh, okay, like this is hot, but like it's not like terribly tasting like the bomb. Like I feel like the bomb is memorable in the way that it just like it tastes like shit. Like it is. arguably one of the worst hot sauces you can ever eat. And I think the fact that they kind of like stack it up to be like the bomb has this terrible flavor, and then the next one has like equally terrible flavor, if not like maybe a slight bit better, and then their sauce is like, okay, like we're a hot sauce, but we don't taste like shit. So here you go. That's what
Yeah,
that would be my take on it. But I mean,
I've
love
never had.
the they
Yeah, yeah.
they it's good. If you like hot sauce, I would highly recommend trying out like the hot ones, like hottest sauce. That one's I would say that's a 10 out of 10. I like it. So you have to let me know, Alex.
I will. I will. I'm gonna get them.
There we go. Awesome. The next question I have for you, Alex, is if you were trapped on a desert island for the next month and there was one album you could bring with you to listen to, what album would it be?
One album.
One album. I feel like a month is a little bit more palatable. Like I anytime I see an interview and they're like, "What's your favorite album of all time?" and that's the only one you can bring with you, I'm like, that seems like just like real like feast or famine there. And I'm like, I'm not about that. I just want to kind of like I want to test your will a little bit, but not like kill you, you know?
I was Orphan by Tom Waits because it's like a triple record as well. So it's I think it's called, or no, what's it called? Called Ballers, Brawlers, and yeah, I think it's just Orphans. But then it's like the three records are called Ballers, like Cry, Brawlers, and Ballers, I think. And each record is like it's part of this like trilogy thing, but
Hmm.
and they're all unique from each other. And it's just like amazing songs. Like one record just like puts you in the mood for kicking ass and like fighting with brawlers. The second record is ballers, so it's like like sad, and it's just heartbreaking music. Like they'll make you feel like you're
Emotions.
not you're not alone. Maybe on an island, you feel like
Yeah,
someone's
yeah,
there.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And the last one is just like really weird, kind of avant-garde stuff, like things you can listen to like over and over again and not get bored.
Hmm.
So I'm pretty sure the record's called Orphans, but it's like a trilogy. It was released like I think like 2005 or something like that.
Sounds interesting. I feel like that would just mess me up. Like I feel like if I had to listen to all three of those albums like back to back, I don't know. I don't know if I would be able to handle that. But you're a stronger man than I, Alex. So I have to give you kudos on that one. I'll also suggest another record if you're into that whole like ideology of like having a succinct album to like and then have kind of like more of a like a series, I guess. There's this one artist called the Deer Hunter, and he did this album called The Color Spectrum, and each album is based off of the color in a color spectrum. So like he's done everything from red to black, like so like anything in between, like red, blues, greens. Like it's really interesting, but it's like an actual like so he has an album that's just like the color spectrum like discography, which is just like specific songs from the album, but then he also has like the complete color spectrum, and then that has each individual album that has based off of a different color.
Yeah, this is cool. I'm just looking it up. Alex, yeah, thanks for that recommendation.
Yeah, no problem. I
Oh yeah,
always like when the bands do something very like out there, and it's cool. Like he's also just like a fantastic composer as well. So I really appreciate his work. But I was like, man, that must have been a monumental task to put all that together. So I could
yeah. I wonder if he has like synesthesia or something like that.
you know what I honestly don't know about that, but Deer Hunter, if you'd like to come on the channel, I mean like that'd be sick. Casey salutes, a man. But the last question I have for you, Alex, is my personal favorite. I've been asking this a lot over the past like year or two. But you know, I told you my love of interviewing bands. Like this is a passion of mine. I love doing it. I love finding out about different artists, why they are, why they do it. Because I feel like music is very much this uniter. It's a way to bring people together, from all different walks of life. But why do you create music? Why is it important to you? Why do you spend the hours mixing an album? Why do you spend the time to, put a lot of time into this? Even to the point of being your own producer and writing your own music. Like, why spend all this time? Why dedicate it to it? You know?
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly love giving people an experience that they cannot forget. And I love having people I love just giving someone like the yeah, just an experience that is life changing, but in a positive way. I really want to. I love like just exciting people, honestly, and
Sure.
inspiring them and making them think things differently, and whether it's like elating them and making them get all excited or freaking them out. Like I every like honestly, and I want to share that like because everything that I end up plucking out of the ether that excites me, I really want to share that with someone. And then at a certain point, like it's actually not really for me. Like it
Sure.
is for me, but like I'm not making music like it's to share. Like I really love engaging with people and like um, it could be healing to certain people.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's really healing to myself sometimes. I love finding that community of people who all get into a certain thing. And it's not coming from a place of like, hey, I did it. That's my thing. I'm more interested in the experience they had. I just,
Sure. Yeah.
love playing live a lot because you get that experience kind of like right away. You see, they walk out of there or you see it on their face. You're really getting it. With making music online, like it's kind of hard because I don't really know who's feeling what when they're
Sure. Sure.
streaming.
Sure.
I don't always get to speak to people like you who's so like open about how made you feel and like so thoughtful about the video and the mute. Like that it's things like that like where and hope and your listeners who get to see the video, hear this conversation, listen to music, and really get a deeper experience, and then love hearing what they felt and like the comments. So definitely like speak up. Like I've had a lot of people approach me at gigs or just online being like, hey, I'm sorry, like it might sound like stupid or blah blah blah, but I really felt like it kind of reminded me of this song, this band. I hope that's okay. I'm not trying to say you sound like them. It's like dude, there's no stupid question, there's no stupid reaction.
Oh
Like
yeah.
just react and absorb it. And yeah, so I guess that's why I do it is I really just want to have people have that experience and meet a community of like-minded um, fellows.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of in the same boat, like my whole ethos for why I interview bands is like I want the experience for people that watch this is for us to like me and Alex are just hanging out and like you just happen to be a part of our like conversation. We're just hanging out, shooting the shit, we're talking about like music and like I want people to feel like they're a part of the conversation and feel like they're involved. Like I interview these artists because I really enjoy it, and I hope that again, very similarly to you, Alex, and wanting to share your music, like I want to be able to share my love and passion for why I love interviewing bands. Like bands already have enough of a hard time as it is, like putting music out in a in a nature where they don't get it paid enough to do what they want to do or what they love to do. And so for me, it's like it costs me nothing to have Alex on to talk about his music, but it would mean a lot to me if you checked out what Alex does. That's like that's what's important to me about doing this is that I want other people to have that shared experience with you.
Yeah, and like the value of a song can be so valuable to someone's life.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not about like the money transaction. It's like if someone can so much value, someone can add a conversation, like
Oh yeah.
you're coming from, a song, an album, like a video experience. Just it's valuable stuff. It's really meaningful, and in the world of um, you know virtual, non tangible things, it's like the human connection is the most valuable.
Oh, 100%. And I hope that you guys really connect with what Alex is doing because, like I said, I felt like Dancing with Chaos was this really cool experience of, visually seeing it, but then auditorily listening to it and being like, this is pretty out there, but like, it worked in a way that I think enticed me and wanted me to listen to more of it. And I hope that that experience and I hope that the way that you guys go about listening to Alex's music is in a similar way to mine, because I think that there is an art to putting a music video together and creating it that way, but there's also an equal amount of art that goes into making the music and that process. So I hope that you would take the time to give, Alex a listen. And obviously, Alex, we're gonna talk about the last thing. Tell the people where they can find you at, what you have coming up. We have been kind of dancing around the album name. I didn't want to say it just in this sake because I want you to say it if you feel you want to say it. But we did kind of say when it's coming out. So um, the floor
Yeah,
is yours, Alex.
awesome. Well, you can find me at, allthethings.com/Alex Exists World. It would be the place to find me, um, or .ca. The record is probably going to come out in June. Okay, it's getting, just
A little delayed.
a little delayed
That's fair.
because there's some.
Listen,
It's going to be called "Everybody's Famous Except Me." That is referencing one of the tracks that's on it, which is a song as a purely like satirical, ironic take on fame
sure.
and actually finding the beauty in not being famous, because I don't like that try hard kind of stuff. It's not about that. It's about doing your thing and connecting with people. And it's just kind of being like, hey, it's actually great when you're not famous. Like, it's actually way more free. So that's the name of the record, and the whole thing has to do with like ego and like a wrestling match with your own ego, and everything else. Thematically, it's kind of like that, and yeah, it's going to be really great. Stay tuned for that, and yeah,
There we go. Well, go check out Alex Exists. I will leave all of the links in the description. Maybe we'll have Alex back on to do a track by track of his full album. So we'll have to hit Jason up again to have you back on. But very excited to see what Alex is going to be doing next. Like I said, I was really just vibing out with Dancing with Chaos, but also simultaneously not sure of what to think about the music video because it was like, as we mentioned before, just a smidge off center. So I think if you like that sort of stuff, you're gonna definitely be vibing with that. And I think the music only puts you more in that mood. So please go give a listen to it. I'll leave a link in the description as well as go give him a follow on YouTube as well as Spotify so you don't miss out on when he drops new music. I know I'm going to make sure to give him a follow on Spotify. I've already subbed on YouTube. You already know. I do my due diligence here. So please go check out Alex. Again, huge shout outs to Jason from Engage for getting him on. And if you enjoyed this interview, share, like, and subscribe. It goes a long way. And huge thanks to Alex for coming on tonight to chat with me.
yeah, loved it, man. Thanks for having me.